So I was on Facebook sometime last week and I saw this video of Daniel Stern reviving his character from the movie Rookie of the Year. And if you don't know what that movie is about, it's about this kid who slips on a baseball and injures the tendon in his shoulder or his arm. And when it heals up, he can pitch the ball like crazy. He has like superhuman strength. And he ends up getting signed to the Chicago Cubs. And then at the end of the movie, they even hint that the Cubs went on to win the World Series. So I went back and rewatched this movie just to see if there's any clues in the movie. I'm pretty sure that he did this, though, because the Cubs are going to be in the World Series. And I think they're going to actually beat the Indians. If the Cubs don't make the World Series, there is something with the number 108 like no other. And although it's been 108 years since the Cubs have won the World Series, it's only been 107 seasons. So next year would be a possible thing to look out for. And in regards to the curse of the Billy Goat, though, the theory or the curse doesn't necessarily specify. There's different theories on it. If it meant that the Cubs will never make the World Series or if they won't ever win the World Series. So possibly the curse of the Billy Goat could be broken just by the Cubs making the World Series, which would make sense to a lot of stuff that I've talked about. And then maybe they could lose to the Indians and then come back next year and win it and would sync up with all the 108 stuff. I still just think they're going to make the World Series for sure this year. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Indians and the Cubs. I've covered so much that seems to sync up to Chicago and the Cubs. Anyway, notice this movie. It came out in 1993, which was the same year that Michael Jordan retired from basketball on 10/6, and the Curse of the Billy Goat happened on 10/6 of 1945. And then Jordan, of course, wears number 45 when he plays baseball. And, of course, connected to Chicago. 106, the word prophecy also equals 106. Anyway, this movie, 103 minutes long. The Cubs finished the regular season this year with 103 wins. If you write out Billy Goat, it equals 103. Remember, Michael Jordan's quit baseball, too, on March 10th of 1994, which can be written as 10/3, a lot like 103. What really stuck out to me is the fact this movie came out on July 9th. I know it's not the same year, but if you go from July 9th and you go to the day the World Series begins this year, it is a span of 108 days. The Cubs haven't won in 108 years. The Willis Tower in Chicago is 108 stories tall. The Great Chicago Fire, it began on October 8th, 10/8 of 1871, which was also the first year of Major League Baseball. It was the Cubs' first season 145 years ago. Chicago, Illinois equals 145. If you write out 145, it equals 108. There's 108 double stitches on a baseball. Another thing in regards to the Cubs possibly not winning, in regards to 108, is Golden State Warriors equal 108 and they didn't win, but Villanova equals 108 and they won. But it's just interesting. The Golden State Warriors were really connected to 108, and then they ended up losing in the NBA Finals to Cleveland. So, just something to think about. I still think that the Cubs are going to beat the Indians, but I could possibly be wrong. Anyway, one of the first things I noticed in this movie, in basically the beginning of the movie, they open up the movie at a baseball game. But when they first show this kid, the main character, he's wearing a Pirates outfit or baseball outfit. It's not the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's just his Little League team, but it sure looks a lot like the Pittsburgh Pirates. And if you've been following my videos, I talked about how the Cubs tied Pittsburgh on the same day as the Hoboken train wreck, and there was a whole lot of symbolism in that. If you write out Pittsburgh Pirates, it equals 228. And that same day that they tied the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Detroit Tigers and the Cleveland Indians had a postponed game. And that game never got made up, And then, of course, they're both cursed in a roundabout way through Detroit. The Cubs and the Indians both cursed, connected to Detroit. But 228 Pittsburgh Pirates. I talked about how Aroldis Chapman was born on 2/28 of 1988. And that just so happens to be the same day that this guy, Harvey Kuhn, had died. February 28th, 1988, 2/28. This guy is the reason of the curse of Rocky Colavito. The Indians traded Rocky Colavito and they got this guy, and that's why they're cursed. So just very interesting. Aroldis Chapman born on the same day that this guy dies. This guy dies age 57. If you write out World Series, it equals 57. He even played 57 games for the Chicago Cubs. Anyway, if you go from their birthday and his death day or whatever, 2/28, and you go to the day the Cubs got Chapman, a span of 148 days, and if you write out Cleveland Indians, it equals 148. So, just lots of interesting connections, and I find it very interesting that Daniel Stern is rooting for the Cubs, bringing back his character from Rookie of the Year where the Cubs win the World Series, and then the main character plays for the Little League team, the Pirates, and even at the very end of the movie, he goes back to Little League and whatnot. And this kid also connected to a bunch of other interesting movies. He's in the movie A Kid in King Arthur's Court that starts off with baseball. He plays for the team the Knights. Knights equal 88. Curse of the Billy Goat equals 88. Also, I didn't get a picture of it, but he wears the number 17. And I looked up number 17 for the Pittsburgh Pirates currently, and it's Matt Joyce. And if you write his name out in gematria, it equals 112. We're going into the 112th World Series. I do not think that's a coincidence. His name equals 112. And it's connected to this movie. Also, in the movie, when the kid throws the ball back, he throws the ball back clear from outfield all the way to the home plate or whatever. And this is the guy who hit the home run, the Montreal Expo. It's just interesting in regards to all the 1994 stuff I talked about in regards to Michael Jordan, if you've been following me. And, 1994, before the strike happened, the Montreal Expos had the best record in the league. So just once again, possibly showing us that year. Possibly it's just because the movie came out in 93. I just found it interesting. Daniel Stern was also born in the year 57. World Series equals 57. The character that he plays in the movie is Phil Brickma. That equals 57 like World Series. Also, the only other stuff I really remember this guy from is Home Alone. The movie that they live in Chicago. The first one takes place in Chicago. And Home Alone equals 88 like Curse of the Billy Goat. He's from Maryland. Maryland, one of only 2 states that equals 88. If any team is going to upset the Cubs in regards to all the 88, it could be the Dodgers, who won in the year 88. Vin Scully just retired. He's age 88. I've also pointed out before that Chapman was born in 88. So, but I feel like it's definitely foreshadowing to finally break the curse. Especially considering all the Michael Jordan stuff and the Chicago White Sox cleared to 2005, who won for the first time in 88 years. Anyway, one other thing. This movie was actually based off of this old movie called Rougie's Bump that came out in 1954. The word baseball equals 54. But in 1954, it was the Indians lost in the World Series. One last thing I just want to point out. There has been some almost Brooklyn-type stories. I guess, we had this train derailment in Long Island. I know Brooklyn's on Long Island. It's not necessarily Long Island, but just interesting. And I feel like it's connected to the iced tea commercial and the death of Arnold Palmer, just because of Long Island iced tea. And, if you spell it out, iced tea like iced tea, it equals the same as Cleveland Indians. It could possibly be nothing, but the video that they gave us was 57 seconds long. World Series equals 57. And, I looked up Brooklyn. It says the zip code prefix is 112. We're going to the 112th World Series. The reason Brooklyn is so interesting is because the Dodgers used to be from Brooklyn until the year 1957. Michael Jordan was born in Brooklyn. But it says that this train wreck happened closest to this, New Hyde Park Station, that equals 228. So the number connecting to the Indians and the Cubs. But the train wreck also happened on 10-8, a lot like 108. So it's possibly either telling us the Dodgers will derail or they're going to be derailed, you know? And it wouldn't be that unbelievable for the Dodgers to make the World Series as well, considering all the civil rights stuff, the Civil War theme. Jackie Robinson was the first black player to play. He played for the Dodgers. It seems like it would make sense, you know, but who knows? I still think it's the Cubs. I think all of this 10-8 stuff is foreshadowing the Cubs. I showed how the last time that the Dodgers had a postponed game this season, they even won 10-8 on the makeup game, and then they had the postponement on 10-8. Lots of 108 foreshadowing. I'm pretty sure it's for the Cubs. But this is how they do it. They make lots of media stories, and then they connect a lot of it to the sports leagues and other things. But they give you clues all leading up to it, who is going to be in the championship and how they're going to win. We even got the story of this baby falling down an elevator shaft and dying. And that was in a Brooklyn high-rise is what it says. A shaft inside a Brooklyn high-rise. And if you find this video on See It Ed, this guy is supposedly the grandpa of the baby. He doesn't even seem like he even remotely cares that the baby was severely injured and died or whatever, you know? Just kind of ridiculous. But I've also talked a lot about the death of Prince and how he's super connected to a lot of this. And, you know, Prince died in the elevator. Then we get the story of this baby supposedly falling down the elevator. I don't know the exact significance of it. I didn't put that much time into researching it. But I found it interesting that it was in Brooklyn. The time of the video was 2:12. Toronto Blue Jays equals 212. Prince Charles of Wales equals 212. He was super significant to the World Series last year. I believe Kansas City Royals even equals 212. We'll type it out really quick. Yep. But 212 was also the day that Abraham Lincoln was born. You know, just tons of stuff. Prince was super connected to the 88 as well. Purple equals 88. Clearback, I talked about all these wild weeds growing around Iowa. It was called Creeping Charlie. It was some purple weed. They were all over in my yard as well. But Creeping Charlie equaled 88. Elizabeth, Prince Charles's mother, Elizabeth equals 88. Trump equals 88. Whole lot of 88 going on. Curse of the Billy Goat. But it says the last time this elevator was inspected was on August 8th, 8/8. And the violations go back to 1994, the year of the baseball strike. Michael Jordan was born in Brooklyn. But anyway, moral of the story, I think that Daniel Stern revived this Rookie of the Year character. They're showing us the Chicago Cubs yet again. And you know what? Rookie of the Year in Gematria even equals 176. Just like Back to the Future. 88 plus 88 is 176. You know, 88 is the speed for time travel. I've even talked about Back to the Future and how it's super connected to actually this year. Part 3 is actually connected to the Cubs and Prince Charles because they used train number 131 to push the DeLorean back to 1985. And they were in the year 1885, which was 131 years ago. The word championship equals 131. Prince Charles equals 131. They just really faked everybody out with last year when the Cubs lost in the playoffs. They got knocked out of the playoffs on Back to the Future Day. I can't believe people don't think that's interesting or, you know, not purposeful. And then literally the Royals go on to win the World Series last year. The Royals actually won the World Series on the day that Back to the Future 3 comes to an end, October 27th, 1985. And then they won it again last year, and the World Series began on October 27th. So, you know, whatever, leaving it at that. Have a good one.